So you remember these little master locks we used to try to get into our lockers with in the high school hallway? Kind of panicked until we could actually get it unlocked in time for class. These locks are very interesting. They're not like the locks a lot of us get today where you have to program in your own code. You have to use the code they were made with in order to unlock them. You know, I think we're kind of the same way as people. There's a universal code we're built with, and we understand that code. It helps us unlock our potential in life to live, to understand who God is, to understand more about ourselves, and to understand others. It's a universal code that Jesus kind of unpacked that's in our wiring. He said one day, treat others the way you want to be treated. In other words, Jesus was talking about a reciprocal principle that applies to all of us in life. And we can take a number of different characteristics or qualities and apply it to this issue. For example, this month we're going to talk about the issue of respect. Take the word respect and apply it to the principle Jesus taught. What would happen if we simply decided to respect others the way we want to be respected? If there was really a mutual respect concept that we taught our children, that once they understood it would affect not only how they see God, not only even how they see others, but the idea that in understanding this issue of respect, it would actually change the way they see themselves. We could say it a number of different ways. If you don't learn to respect, don't expect to be respected. If you don't understand the power of being respectful, you will never become respectable. There's something about respect that not only shows a quality to the person you're treating a certain way, but also that builds character within ourselves and allows us to see ourselves through a different lens and filter. That's the way God made us. That's the code that He built us with. And when we understand that code, it changes everything. We understand that we look at everyone else from two perspectives. Number one, God made them. God created them. And because He created them, because He made them, they're important to Him. And so they should be important to us. And not only that, if we think in terms of the fact that God made them, that implies something else. That in cases where they're in charge or they're in authority, that means that God put them in authority and God put them in charge. What would happen if all of a sudden we began to treat everyone around us with the kind of respect that indicated, number one, that we knew God made them, and number two, that God put them in the position that they're in? Cooperating with the code that God has created us with and showing respect to other people is actually making a choice to give them something, to give them a gift, because God ultimately has called us to treat others a certain way, the way we would want to be treated, respect others a certain way, the way we would want to be respected. It doesn't mean that we agree with everything. It doesn't mean that we always submit in a situation, especially if it goes against God. It simply means that we make a deliberate choice to show other people in every opportunity that we have that God made them, that they're important to God, and that God put them in the position of authority. As a matter of fact, you can look through Scripture and see many times when there were key characters in the Bible who would challenge the authority structure, but they would challenge it in a way that was respectful. So during the course of this month, as a parent or as a leader, we hope that we'll give you an opportunity to show a child what respect looks like, what it sounds like, what it feels like. Most important, how it works in their life. That's why we define respect as showing others they are important by what you say and do. In other words, your vocabulary, the tone of your voice, the words you choose to use indicate respect. What you do, how you act toward others, how you treat them also demonstrate and illustrate respect. In some cases, we could even say what you don't say or what you don't do can illustrate whether or not you're being respectful. So it only makes sense if we want to understand how respect works that we actually go to the Bible, since God wrote the Bible and God designed the code, and there we find some insight that's very important for us to teach our children. The first one's in Romans 13, where basically in that scripture God unpacks the purpose for authority and how He's organized government as His servant to do good for us, to lean into our children as parents and to teach them why it's important for them to respond to those who are in charge in a certain way, to actually see the people who are in charge of their lives, whether it's at school or one day in their job or as a parent, to see those authorities as people God literally put in place to help them grow and to help them learn. Then during the second week of this month, you're going to build on that principle in Romans 13 by an illustration that we find in David's life when he is hiding in a cave and he could literally have taken Saul's life, but Saul was the king. And David had an insight. David understood something about authority, and David understood something about respect, and that it would be wrong for him in that situation to take advantage of a king who was not even treating him the way that he should. In other words, it's important that we understand this isn't something we simply show somebody when they earn our respect, but we show them respect because of the position God's given them. So we're going to talk about how respect works, how to unlock the code, what it means, how God's designed it. We're going to see in David's life what it can look like. And then we're going to jump into the book of James and talk about what respect sounds like. We're going to talk about the passage where James refers to what we say in our words and how the tongue has the potential to either show respect or disrespect, and how it's so important that we think about respect in terms of how it sounds. The point is, as Christians, once we really believe there's a God, and that God made the people around us, and that God put certain people in charge to protect us, it changes not only the way we act toward them, not only what we say, but actually the way we feel toward them. We begin to look at them with a different attitude and a different heart perspective. We begin to understand that we should trust them and we should respect them. And it's something that's beyond even our actions. It's something that's internal. That's why a perfect way to end the month is to talk about a story in the New Testament of a centurion or a commander who came to Jesus one day and he understood the code. He understood the chain of command, and he literally leaned into Jesus and he said, I know you have authority, and I know all you have to do is speak the word and something miraculous will happen. And because of his faith in Jesus, because of his respect for who Jesus was, something happened that day that illustrated to us again why it's so important for us to trust those that God has put in authority. We hope that every child in your ministry, every child in your home will begin to understand the power of unlocking the code of respect. That ultimately their life will be different if this is something that they apply as a principle in their daily routine. 1 Peter 2:17 says, show proper respect to everyone. In other words, because God made them, because God put them in the position of authority, we should show respect to them. Something potentially would happen in your home, even as a parent, if you understood the power of this principle and you kind of decided as a family or even personally that you put some respecter detectors in place. So you're constantly asking yourself some really important questions about how you're demonstrating respect, how you're saying things in a respectful way. I mean, for example, when your son or daughter comes home and they're frustrated with their teacher, how do you respond to that, and how do you talk about their teacher with them? When you get stopped, driving down the road for a speeding violation, what do you say about the police officer right before he comes to the window of the car? And when the president makes his State of the Union address, what kind of words to use to describe who he is and what he's like in his position? Or even when the waitress walks up to your table and she gets your order wrong, what is it you do in that moment to demonstrate to your kids that God made them? The bottom line is, at the end of this month, we want your children to see themselves in a different way. We want them to understand that when they show respect to other people, it actually increases their respect for themselves. And more importantly, it increases their respect for God, since He put it all into motion. That's His code, and that's the thing we want you to unlock for them to see.